What if the man known for rockets, robots, and reason was brought to tears by one question about Jesus? In a moment no one expected, Joe Rogan asked Elon Musk something that stopped him cold. Not about science, not about space, but about the resurrection. And what Elon said next changed everything. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The studio clock read 11:47 p.m. The warm glow of hanging lights gave the room a comforting feel, while the low hum of monitors and the faint hiss of the audio feed filled the background. Elon Musk leaned slightly forward in his chair, mid-thought, explaining the future of neural interfaces with his usual technical clarity. His hands moved as he spoke, drawing diagrams in the air. Joe Rogan nodded along, eyes half closed until they weren't. Joe suddenly leaned in closer. "Elon," he said, his tone shifting, "can I ask you something that's been eating at me for months?" Elon paused. "Sure," he said, expecting a question about ethics or automation. Joe didn't blink. "Do you believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead?" The words dropped like a stone into the room. Elon blinked once, then again. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came. For the first time in hours, he was silent. The studio felt different now. The comfortable flow of conversation screeched to a halt. The hum still buzzed, but the room had grown still, as if even the equipment was waiting. Elon shifted in his seat. His eyes darted to the camera, then back to Joe. Joe didn't smile. He wasn't joking, because this question wasn't for entertainment. It was personal. Elon exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening around the armrest. "That's not a simple question, Joe," he said, his voice quiet. Joe didn't back down. "Actually, it is. Yes or no?" Elon looked down at the table. His voice, when it came, was softer than before. "I haven't thought about that in years. Not really. Not seriously." He paused, then looked up. "I remember the moment I stopped believing. I was 14, back in South Africa. My dad took me to a church one Sunday. The pastor was talking about miracles. Jesus turning water into wine, walking on water, raising the dead. I sat there, thinking, this is mythology. It's just a way for people to explain the unexplainable." He rubbed his hands together, slowly. "I remember feeling like I was smarter than everyone in that room, like I had seen behind the curtain. Science made sense, physics made sense. This resurrection story didn't." Joe watched him carefully, saying nothing. Elon continued more slowly now. "But lately, something's been happening. I've been having this recurring dream. I'm standing in front of a tomb. It's empty, but there's this light coming from inside, and every time, there's a voice. It says my name." Joe leaned forward, barely breathing. "What does it say?" Elon's throat tightened. "The voice doesn't tell me what to do. It just asks a question, always the same." Joe nodded. "And the question is?" Elon's voice cracked. "Why are you afraid to believe?" The silence that followed felt deeper than anything they'd ever recorded. Elon shifted in his seat again, pressing his palms against his knees. "Joe, I'm angry." Joe raised his eyebrows. "At what?" Elon let out a strained laugh. "At the dreams, at myself, at Jesus." Joe blinked. "Jesus?" "Yeah," Elon nodded. "Because ever since these dreams started, I can't stop thinking about him. I've spent my entire life building things, calculating, solving, and now I'm having dreams that feel more real than waking life, and they all lead to the same image, this tomb, this light, and that voice." Joe sat still, the air between them charged. "Elon, I need to tell you something." Elon looked up. Joe spoke slowly. "3 weeks ago, my daughter asked me the same question I just asked you, about Jesus. And since then, I've been having dreams too, not the same as yours, but close. In mine, I'm in a courtroom, and I'm the jury, and the only thing I'm there to decide is whether or not one man really rose from the dead." Elon stared at him, something shifting in his expression. "You dreamed that?" Joe nodded. "And every time, I wake up before I can give an answer." Elon leaned back, eyes wide. "What if this conversation isn't random?" Joe's voice dropped. "What if someone's trying to reach us?" Elon hesitated, then looked down at his hands. "There's something else." Joe waited. 2 months ago, I had a minor procedure. They put me under anesthesia. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal, but when I was out, something happened. Joe leaned in. "What kind of something?" Elle's voice lowered. "I was in a place. Not a dream, not a memory. A place. And I wasn't alone. There were people I didn't recognize, but somehow I knew them. And there was a presence. I can't explain it, but it felt like being completely known and still completely loved." Joe swallowed hard. "Did you see him?" Elon nodded. "Yes, Jesus. Not like the pictures. Just a man. But when he looked at me, I knew. He saw everything. Every failure. Every secret. Every moment I've run from this exact question." Joe whispered, "What did he say?" Elon blinked away the sting in his eyes. He asked me, "Why are you so afraid of love?" Elon took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly, as if he were trying to let something go but couldn't. His eyes stayed fixed on the table. "You know what scares me more than anything?" he asked, voice trembling. "Being fully seen and still chosen. That kind of love, it doesn't make sense, not in my world. I've spent my life building systems, predicting outcomes, calculating risk. Everything has a cost, everything has a trade-off. But this idea that someone could see everything in me, all the arrogance, all the pride, the failures, the coldness, and still love me? That terrifies me." Joe didn't interrupt. He let the silence stretch, honoring the weight of what Elon had just said. After a moment, Elon continued, "When I saw him in that place, I felt like I was standing in front of a mirror that didn't just show the surface, it showed everything. Every moment I let ambition replace compassion, every time I buried emotion under intellect, every person I hurt when I thought I was just being efficient." His voice faltered. "And he didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He just saw me, and I knew that he knew me." Joe finally spoke. "You know what I've realized listening to you? I think I've been hiding behind questions my whole life, behind philosophy, curiosity, debate, but never surrender, never trust. I've interviewed hundreds of people about God, about the afterlife, about spirituality. I've had brilliant conversations, but I've always stayed at arm's length, like if I kept it in the realm of ideas, it couldn't reach into my heart." He looked down, ashamed, "And I think that makes me a coward." Elon met his gaze. "Maybe that makes both of us cowards." Joe nodded slowly. "Or maybe it just makes us human." They sat in silence again, but this time it was different. The air felt heavier, like something sacred was unfolding in the space between them. Elon leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. "What if we've both been pursued? Not aggressively, not with threats or guilt, but patiently, lovingly. What if Jesus has been chasing us in dreams and questions, in moments we didn't understand at the time?" Joe's voice softened. "What if he's been inviting us all along to stop running?" Elon gave a sad smile. "You know, I used to think that if God existed, he'd have to be cold, logical, something I could understand with reason. But the presence I felt, it wasn't cold, it wasn't detached, it was love. Not the kind that asks you to clean yourself up first, the kind that meets you in the mess and stays. He paused. And yet, I still push it away, Joe asked. Because I don't want to need it, Elon admitted. I want to deserve it. I want to earn it. I want to be worthy of it because of my work, my intellect, my accomplishments. But what if I've been trying to earn something that was always free? Joe swallowed hard, blinking back tears. Maybe we weren't asking the wrong questions, he said quietly. Maybe we were running from the right one. Elon sat quietly for a long time. His breathing slowed, his shoulders dropped, and something in his eyes shifted, like a curtain being pulled back from a window that had always been there. He looked at Joe, not with certainty but with something deeper. Humility. I think, he started, then paused, trying to find the words. I believe. He rose from the dead. Joe didn't move. He just let it sit there, sacred and raw. I've tried to make sense of it, Elon continued, his voice unsteady. Tried to write it off as a dream or a hallucination, but it wasn't. Not the way it felt, not the way it stayed with me. It wasn't like anything else I've ever experienced. It was too vivid, too personal, too full of... He looked down at his hands, turning them over as if he no longer recognized them. When he looked at me, Joe, it was like he knew every variable of my life, every outcome I'd modeled, every plan I'd constructed. But none of it impressed him. He wasn't looking for my brilliance. He was looking for something I didn't even know I had left. Joe leaned in. What did he say? Elon blinked slowly, and then the words came. He said, "Do you know why I still died for you? Not why I died, why I still died for you." Like he knew every reason I would give for why I didn't deserve it, every excuse I'd made to keep my heart closed. And still, he chose to love me. Still, he chose the cross. His voice cracked, and I didn't have an answer. I couldn't explain it, I couldn't argue with it. I just broke. Joe's eyes welled with tears. "That's when everything changed." Elon nodded. "That's when I stopped trying to understand it and started trying to accept it. I realized I've spent my whole life trusting formulas, trusting logic, trusting the observable. But love, real love, the kind that sees everything and stays, that requires trust of a different kind. It's not earned, it's received." He wiped at his eyes. "And that's what I've been fighting. Not the idea of God, not even the idea of Jesus. I've been fighting the idea that I don't have to earn it, that someone already paid the price, that someone already knows me and loves me anyway." Joe exhaled. "That's grace." "Yeah," Elon whispered. "Grace. The one thing I couldn't calculate." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The studio, full of cables and wires and blinking lights, had never felt so quiet. Elon stared into the distance, his voice barely audible now. "I don't want to keep Jesus buried anymore." Joe looked at him, confused. Elon turned to him, eyes fierce with a strange kind of peace. "I mean, I don't want to keep him buried, not in me. I've buried him under logic, under ambition, under my own fear. But he's alive, and maybe it's time I let him live through me." Joe nodded slowly, sensing the weight of the moment. Something was rising, something neither of them fully understood, but neither wanted to resist. Not anymore. Elon sat still for a long time, his hands folded, his eyes no longer darting with uncertainty. The weight of his admission hung in the studio like thick fog, undeniable, sacred, and real. Then, without prompting, he looked at Joe and said, "Can I do something? On camera?" Joe tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Elon took a deep breath. "I want to pray. Here, now, on this podcast, in front of everyone." Joe blinked, caught off guard by the boldness. "You sure?" Elon said with a nervous laugh. "But I know I need to." The room fell into silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was reverent. Slowly, Elon closed his eyes. His voice was unsteady at first, but it grew stronger with every word. "Jesus," he said softly, "I don't know how to do this. I've spent my whole life trying to be brilliant, trying to be right, trying to control everything, and maybe I've succeeded at a lot of things, but I've failed at the one thing that matters most, letting myself be loved by you." His hands trembled slightly. "I've mocked faith. I've buried you under science, under logic, under pride. But you never stopped pursuing me. You came after me in dreams, in questions, in silence. And now, I see, you've been there all along." Joe swallowed hard and bowed his head. Elon continued, "I don't understand everything about you. I don't have all the answers, but I want to stop running. I want to stop pretending I can fix myself or figure out life on my own. If you really rose from the dead, then I want you to rise in me too." He paused, breathing shakily. "Jesus, I surrender. Teach me how to be loved by you. Teach me how to love others the way you do." Tears rolled down his face. Across the table, Joe's eyes were also wet. Joe finally whispered, "Jesus, I think you've been chasing both of us, and I think this moment, it was yours, not ours." Then, through his own tears, Joe added, "Help us. Help us not just believe in you, but to trust you. Help us live like love really is the foundation of everything." They sat there in silence. Both men bowed, the cameras still rolling. The audience would later say the podcast shifted from an interview to something holy. But in that moment, neither man was thinking about viewers, headlines, or legacy. They were just two men, finally admitting they were tired of pretending to have it all figured out. Finally, Elon looked up. His face was wet with tears, but his voice was clear. "Joe," he said quietly, "I think we've spent our lives trying to save the world." Joe looked up, waiting. Elon's voice softened. "But maybe we forgot we needed saving too." The words settled like rain on dry ground. No applause, no music, just a stillness that felt like peace. And for the first time in their lives, the men who had once tried to control the future let themselves be held by something far greater. The cameras stopped rolling, but neither Elon nor Joe moved. They sat in silence, the hum of the studio equipment barely audible beneath the weight of what had just happened. No one reached for a phone. No one reached for notes. Just two men sitting in the afterglow of something neither could explain and neither wanted to disturb. Joe finally spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "I've never felt more awake, not just mentally, but in my soul, like something just clicked into place." Elon nodded, his hands resting on the edge of the table, no longer clenched. "You know," he said slowly, "I used to think that innovation was the highest expression of human potential, that if we just created the right technologies, solved the right problems, we could evolve past pain, past failure, maybe even past death." He paused, eyes distant. "But now, I think I had it backward. All those years chasing progress, pushing the boundaries, trying to conquer nature, I missed something. The real power isn't found in control. It's in surrender. It's in being known and loved." Joe leaned back in his chair, watching Elon closely. Elon continued, "Jesus changed the equation, not survival of the fittest, not the strong overcoming the weak, but salvation through love, a love that doesn't eliminate suffering, but enters into it, a love that doesn't require us to win, but invites us to be transformed." He looked over at Joe. "All my theories about consciousness, about sentience, about the singularity, they were all attempts to answer one question. What does it mean to be truly alive?" Elon's voice softened. And now I think I know. It means being loved, fully, and choosing to love back. Joe swallowed hard. That's a bigger breakthrough than anything you've ever built. Elon smiled faintly. Yeah, and I didn't build this one. I just finally stopped running from it. They sat for a while longer, not needing to fill the air with noise. The studio, so often filled with laughter, debate, and big ideas, now held a different kind of presence. Quiet, steady, unmistakable. Finally, Elon leaned forward and said, I think Jesus has been trying to rise in me my whole life, and now I'm finally letting him. Joe closed his eyes for a moment, letting those words settle in his chest. When he opened them, Elon was looking straight at him. For the thing is, Elon added, I don't think this is just about me, or you. I think this is about all of us. We've all buried him, under fear, under doubt, under pride. But he's still knocking, still calling us by name. Joe nodded slowly. And now we get to decide if we'll open the door. Elon took a deep breath as if releasing something that had been held for too long. The force that holds the universe together, it's not gravity. It's not logic. It's not even energy. He looked at the floor, then up again, this time with peace in his eyes. It's love, he said, and love has a name. What question have you been afraid to ask? Maybe it's not the kind of question you say out loud. Maybe it's the one that lingers in your thoughts when the world goes quiet. The kind of question that challenges your entire worldview, not because it's complicated, but because it's deeply personal. The kind that won't let you sleep. The kind that shows up in dreams, in conversations, in the silence between moments. What if Jesus has been trying to reach you too? Not with pressure, not with religion, but through your doubts, through your intellect, through your fears, through the very questions you've tried to avoid your whole life. What if he's been knocking, not to take control, but to offer love? Elon Musk didn't expect to encounter Jesus in a moment of vulnerability, and Joe Rogan didn't plan for a podcast to turn into a spiritual awakening. But something happened, something real, and maybe, just maybe, it's not just their story. Maybe it's yours too. Maybe Jesus has been gently reaching for your heart through every moment of questioning, every episode of searching, every season of wandering, not to condemn, not to shame, but to invite you into something deeper, something healing, something alive. What would it mean for you to be fully known and still deeply loved? To bring all the things you hide, the fears, the pride, the pain, to someone who already sees it all and chooses to stay? That's not the love the world offers, but that's the kind of love Jesus brings. If you've ever wondered if you matter, if you're worthy, if there's more to life than what you can see and touch, pause here, right now, just pause, breathe, and let the question rise to the surface. What if he's been pursuing you all along? You don't need to have the answers. You don't need a perfect prayer. You don't need to fix yourself first. You only need to be honest. So maybe take a quiet moment. Say a simple prayer, or just whisper, Jesus, if you're real, I want to know you. That's where it starts. A whisper, a willingness, a door cracked open. And if this story spoke to you, if it stirred something in you, then don't let it pass by. Sit with it, share it, let it work on your heart. And subscribe for more inspiring stories like this, because sometimes the most life-changing answers don't come from shouting into the void. They start with one honest question whispered in the dark. And someone who has always been listening